Hi, Gavin here, drummer and manager of The Signatures. Welcome to our new podcast. We're going to be talking everything Northern Soul, interviewing artists, interviewing DJs, and generally having a good time. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Here we go. Welcome to The Signatures' first podcast. And it only seemed right to start our first podcast with original members of the band, well before my time. Before I joined, which was 10 years ago. So I'm joined with Paul and Steve Millbank.
Right, first things first, I was the one making them sound what they did. I wasn't in the band, although possibly part
Steve,
of the band.
you were the original drummer.
Yeah, original drummer.
You are the original drummer of The Signatures.
Yeah.
And I believe there's only been three, you, Dan and me.
And you.
There's been lots of members of other instruments, but I think in drummers it's only been three.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to getting back to the first starts of the band, because there's a lot I know about the first parts of the band, obviously from us talking in the past and me picking up on a lot of the history before I joined. But there's a lot of things I don't know as well, and we've just been briefly talking here before we started recording and whatever else, and it's quite interesting for me to still get some of that knowledge, really, because obviously it's been quite a part of my life it's been my life for the last 10 years, and it's going to be quite nice just to sort of put some of those extra jigsaw pieces together that I still don't know as well. So I'm looking forward to it. So thanks for coming along. Really appreciate you taking the time. We've discussed and trying to do some sort of video or something for quite a while. So I'm really pleased that you've come over, and we're going to do it on our first podcast, which is going to run. So we're going to be running some podcasts over the next for months with Sydney Barnes. We've got some dancers, Northern Soul dancers, and basically just general Northern Soul interest, what goes around the band and what else. So seems good to start it off with you two that originally started the band. So how did it all start? Mod Life Crisis was the band that was running.
Prior to that, I mean, how far back do you want to go?
School, I suppose.
School, yeah.
Schoolmates being in bands and stuff.
That was Mod Life Crisis, though, wasn't it?
Prior to that even.
Before that, yeah.
I mean, obviously, the possibly three original members, which was himself, Billy Mal, and Graham Clasper, myself as well, obviously, but I wasn't involved then, were at school together, albeit in 3 different years. So they used to get together and jam from the age of probably 12, 13, picking up something and twanging it, with the influence being probably the jam. Am I right?
Well, I'm thinking even it must have been, we were still at school back in the 80s, early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, and myself and Graham were in a band called SLS, Street Level Stylists, like a mod band. I played guitar then. He was bass. We had a guy, Brian Dark, on the drums, and at the same time Bill had a band. Had a couple of bands actually. Take Oath was one of the first bands he was in.
One. And then on the Waterfront.
On the Waterfront, sort of, it was more of a rock band. And
that was the originals band, wasn't it?
Done all their original stuff, and they kind of nearly got a record deal, and they were playing the London circuit, and when that kind of fizzled out, us all being mates, we'd always have a jam together. We'd pick a studio such as this, and get together and just jam.
Hi, Gavin here, drummer and manager of The Signatures. Welcome to our new podcast. We're going to be talking everything Northern Soul,
just love it. And
artists, interviewing DJs, and generally having a good time.
We
Sit
came
back, relax, and enjoy.
About
Here we go.
2007. We'd had a few jams prior to that with another guy who didn't go on to feature in the main band, but we was in the kitchen, me and Bill in my kitchen having a cup of tea, and I said we're going to start rehearsing together and see where it goes, and when it finally did start getting some wheels, it was my missus that gave us the name Mod Life Crisis. She said, "You're having a midlife crisis," and she said, "No, more like a mod life crisis." And it was what a great name.
It's a pretty good name, actually.
So that was the beginnings of what became The Signatures.
And that was playing just general sort of mod.
That was. I mean, the first gig we did, we hired a village hall,
Allsip Village Hall,
our local village hall, and we didn't charge anyone. We basically done it as a showcase, and we managed to play about 14 or 15 songs, and there's a video of it somewhere, the original, and it was all Jam, Small Faces, Who, the usual stuff. But we put in some rare stuff as well. You know, we didn't just play the big Jam numbers. You know, we played. One of them was. What did we play?
Away from
the Numbers. We played a couple of Clash songs. Yeah. But we played about 15 songs, a Yardbird song in there, you know, but mainly Jam and Small Faces and Who. So,
I think at that time as well, the sort of scooter revival thing started getting going again.
Yeah.
And because they've still got the scoots and whatever, you meet people that are, and you've got the same sort of music. And I think Chris Stocks.
Yeah.
Chris Stocks was a major player.
Chris Stocks, that's right. Chris Stocks was, he'd been a scooterist all his life, same as myself. And knowing Chris, he kind of got involved. He came and saw our first showcase gig.
And he was putting bands on.
Yeah, he was putting bands on. You know, he was involved with the Shed Weekenders and stuff like that, Mersey Island. So, you know, he DJ'd at Mersey Island. So that later became, you know, getting gigs as Mod Life Crisis. When we finally sort of started taking shape, we played at Hemsby for Rob Quartermain, and
it was mainly the scooter scene.
Yeah. It was. We played scooter rallies and stuff like that, you know, and any gigs we could get, like you do when you're a new band. You know, anyone that would take us, really.
Yeah, I mean, because I think Chris is involved. I mean, how I got involved in it is they'll probably tell you I had a bit of an unnatural obsession with hi-fi. And anything to make it sound.
I've never heard that.
Never heard that. You've never heard that, have you?
I just heard you like to play with a lot of knobs.
No, I do like playing with knobs. Yeah, that bit come later. I mean, that's another secret. But so when they started off, well, we're going to need, rather than just have it side stage, they want someone out the front, and they asked me to do it.
Yeah.
And so I'm involved on that side.
You was involved right from the very first.
Yeah, right from the very first gig.
From that showcase, you did the sound at that showcase, didn't you?
A little Mackie CFX board, a couple of not Mackie speakers, what were PVs, a couple of PV 2600 amps, I think. Yeah, the Hysis 2s. So that started out with that. So you've got a band of 4 of them. Was it 5?
No, it was 4.
Bill.
Billy Mel,
Lully, was Ants involved on
Anthony
stage?
Russell, yeah, Anthony Russell.
That's 5.
And Anthony, we didn't know Anthony. He came from one of them online kind of musician.
Yeah.
Find me a band, or you know, we put an ad, and he answered the ad and said, you know, I live local. He lived in Basildon, and he came along, and you know, he was a bit younger than us, but he was into the same music, you know, all day long. You know, he still loves all his Britpop and stuff like that. So,
and early stuff.
And he just fitted in with us. He just got our vibe, you know, and that's important in a band, as you know.
100%.
You know, you spend a lot of time in rehearsal studios and a lot of time backstage, where you know, if you don't get on, it doesn't work. You've got to get on with it.
You spend longer in the tour bus backstage rehearsals than what you have to do on stage.
So I've now got. I mean, it's something. Being in control of a board, I've never ever done this before. So I'm standing at the back of the room, I'm probably bricking it more than these guys that have never ever played. And I've got to try and, you know, we've got all our mates there and girlfriends and God knows what else. And you've got to try and be professional. Now, I ain't got a Scooby. I really ain't. This is the first time in front of this board, and it's what's this do, what's that do? Working out as I go along. Literally working out as I go along. So anyway, curtain up and away we go. Obviously, they did something right, because in the ordnance say was this guy Chris Stocks, who does promote, put a lot of bands on, etc. Now, I think the next that went quite well. And so that's actually recorded somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got that. I've got the original recording. There's some on YouTube.
I think
some bits and pieces.
You might want to try and look that one up. The next one after that was the Billet, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was quite funny, because we used to rehearse in creative studios. So Dave Shallow's place down at not Horndon on the Hill, is it? West Horndon. West Horndon, Brentwood way. And he tried to get us a gig at the railway by West Horndon station, which wasn't known to be a music venue, and I remember we
went in there.
we went along to have a look, and the landlady said, yeah, this is where we set our bands up, and literally there was about 6 foot by 6 foot to try and get a 4-piece band in, and we said, no, we're not going to fit in here. That's not going to happen.
Bill wouldn't fit in there on his own. Bill was quite an alpha male.
And I don't know how the Billet gig. The Billet is a venue in Stamford-le-Hope, and it's got. We played in the pub. We didn't play in the hall because like Bad Manners have played the hall there. Yeah. But we played actually in the main bar, and I think he offered us £200 for our first gig. And this was 2007 when bands were earning a lot more than that in a pub, and £200 weren't a great deal of money. But we suddenly realised that we'd be playing to a pub audience and not our friends, and not, you can't get away with doing, obscure album tracks. Yeah. We had to suddenly
go mainstream,
throw a load of more mainstream stuff in, which wasn't really us, but it was kind of like the way it had to go. Yeah. And it didn't feel right, playing Stereophonics and Kaiser Chiefs and stuff that was out at the time. And but we did it, and it went down well, and the band, the pub wanted to book us again. But around that same time, we got the call from Chris Stocks to play up at Hemsby, which was the real sort of first thing that we done that was in front of a lot of people, and that was the Battle of the Bands at Hemsby Scooter Rally.
Sorry for looking at my phone, but I've actually got the list of Battle of. On that gig, it was Mary Love headlined, with Definitely Might Be, The Fakers, and Monkey Spanner. Communicators as well. Oh, and Scam 69. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Scam played.
Scam played. I didn't know. They'd been
well, I remember at that gig because we'd played the Battle of the Bands had been in the afternoon, and we didn't win it. A band called Punch the Vicar,
which was a girl like
punk
Sex
band.
Pistols in terms of dress.
Yeah. And they weren't very musically talented, but I think they had the look, and the winners got to play the main stage at the Winter Warmer at Canberra, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry, no, Canberra the following summer, because Hemsby was the Winter Warmer.
Yeah. Then you get Canberra.
And because the Chelmsford Scooter Club was putting that on down there. So
the actual Battle of the Bands was the most, but they didn't turn up. It's Mickey Finch.
Yeah.
They didn't turn up for whatever reason. The Rays, the Communicators, 50% Potato, were a bit of a...
What a great name for a band.
Yeah, they were young lads. So was a laugh.
Skull band, it was all right. The Straits, Punch the Vicar, who was on about, and obviously these guys here. And I think these were late on in coming into the bill. Yeah. And what I recall of it, we've sat through obviously all these bands, and it's their turn to go on. And I thought, well, these are better than them in terms of engagement with the crowd. They are better. Unfortunately, they weren't dressed in stockings and suspenders, so they weren't ever going to get the vote.
Bill might have been.
Bill might have been, yeah. That's another story.
But what happened there?
We'll get that later.
So we played as mostly jam and those normal pub fodder for that kind of an event. But we had maybe 3 or 4 Northern Soul songs that we'd been working on, and I know if I could only be sure, right track. I'm sure we did. You may have done the Snake.
You did do the Snake.
I think there was about 4 songs, and what I remember is all these bands had been playing. No one was getting up dancing or really engaging. It was like in a pub setting, and everyone's leaning back having a beer and watching them. And when we played the jam stuff, it was the same kind of we was met with the same reaction. But then we played a Northern Soul song, and the dance floor was full. Everyone got up and started dancing. And that, for me, was a light bulb moment.
Nothing to do with 20 points of it already.
I thought, there's something in this, Northern Soul. Who does Northern Soul? What bands do Northern Soul live? And that was the genie coming out of the bottle for me.
Yeah.
It was that moment. That was the seminal moment that there's something here in this Northern Soul thing. Let's explore it. So away we go, and we do more gigs the following year. And we started getting quite a following locally. A lot of people would come to see us when we played locally. But when we played the scooter rallies, I think the following year, in the April, we, as we alluded to earlier, we played the Purple Hearts at their reunion gig. So I think it was April 2008.
2008 it was.
And Chris Stocks had been asked because the Welcome Club had quite a reputation for putting good bands on. Chris got asked to promote it, and he asked us to be the support act, which was for me. I mean, as a kid watching the Purple Hearts, you know, at the Greyhound at Chapelheath, I was up there quite regularly watching them. To play with what was my childhood heroes was unbelievable for me.
And all of a sudden, I'm in control of a name band.
Paul, we did the sound as well, you know. So we by then we'd progressed a bit from the original gear we had, but what
Purple Hearts were then, because obviously we'll get onto the signatures and what it's done now and over the last 10 years later on, which has been quite a lot of support work. So the Purple Hearts were really the first major band that the signatures ever worked with in terms of a support slot or anything.
Well, we weren't the signatures then. Don't think. We were still Modern Life Crisis, but the room was absolutely jam packed. I think the place holds about 250 people, and I think there was about 350, 400 people in there.
No, it was sweating. It was like a proper.
They'd oversold it.
Venue, like, you know, the 100 Club with like 200 people in
it. Everyone wanted to be part of the Purple Hearts reunion because it'd been years since they'd played, and you know, they took the roof off the place. But we also played really well, and I know there were some reviews, you know, online reviews where people were saying, "Oh, the support act were absolutely awesome." And, you know, for me, that was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, that was great. But then again, Chris Stocks put us on at the Shed where we supported the Beat. The Beat were one of the main acts there, and we were second on, so we weren't the opening act. You know, we were the second act before the Beat, and that was a good thing that night. We'd been in the studio and actually recorded. If I could only be sure, we'd done a recording, a proper
copy.
Yeah. No, Glenn.
No,
so Glenn,
rewind it a bit.
Glenn Cuttle joined on keys around that time, just after the Purple Hearts gig, but just before the gig we did with the Beat at the Shed weekend, which was in Peterborough.
Glenn is related along the line to Bill. So we are all sort of pretty incestuous. You know, everyone knows everybody. And I think he was, probably still was the youngest ever top piano keyboard person at the London School of Music. You know, for a young kid.
Talented guy.
He's absolutely, you've worked with him, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, I've never seen anything like it. You know, he just listens to something and away he goes.
Oh, we really had to up our game when he joined the band. And he really took us to another level.
So the next couple of gigs, there was 5 of you. And now we're leading up to, again, another gig at the Welcome Club, which was for...
No, before that was the Shed. What happened at the Shed, because we'd played the Shed as a 5-piece, and the other guys went home, and me and you stayed, didn't we? In fact, we rock and roll, man. We slept in the car, but we stayed. We got on it in the green room, and we stayed. We didn't go home. We slept in the back of the car.
That's the way to do it.
And he woke me up at about 2 a.m. because we was outside where the disco was still going, and they was actually playing the track that we'd recorded in the disco, and people were dancing to Modern Life Crisis playing If I Could Only Be Sure.
Nice.
And he's woke me up and said, listen. And
Chris Stocks has obviously put it on. It was probably him and Bounce, God rest his soul, because they were DJing as a pair.
Robbie Muir.
They'd probably put it on, and that crowd just lapped it up. What I could hear about it. And
but that was another great moment, you know, to something that, you know, we made this, you know, kind of thing. And and then as you say, we then moved on to later on the Welcome Club. We had a few more gigs booked in. I think we're going now. We were doing lots of sort of working men's club type gigs and not pubs. We were sort of charging tickets for people to get in to see us, and we were booked to do a friend of ours 40th, and this was around the time when we were doing more and more Northern Soul in the set, and I kind of sat the band down. We had a band meeting in the Dog and Partridge at Balfon on the A128 there. After we'd had a rehearsal, And I said, well, we need a band meeting, guys. So we went in after, had a few beers, and I kind of put the roadmap of what I could see the band turning into to the band. And I said, I think we should get away from being a pub band, doing the jam and the small face, as much as we love it, and concentrate on the Northern Soul. And everyone agreed. Everyone that was at that meeting said, yeah, let's give it a shot. You know, there's pub bands doing the jam and who, ten a penny.
Yeah.
Still is.
Yeah.
Who does Northern Soul? And I said, so my vision is, you know, we become a band that's got a brand.
Yep.
You know, we rename, and of course that in itself is like, what are we going to do?
Later.
Yeah, we hadn't at that time, you know. So everyone said, "Yeah, we're on board." And anyway, about 2 or 3 weeks after that, I'd been. I knew Dave Welton, who was part of the Brass Monkeys. So he played. Dave Welton played with Bad Manners, and he played with lots of bands back in the day. But he was one of these guys that you could phone him and say, I need a brass section, and he'd get you a brass section. So I spoke with Dave, and I said, you know, if we can score some music for you guys, can we get you in to do a gig? Which he agreed to. He said, I'll get you a brass section, we'll do a gig. We got a couple of girls in as backing singers. Now all this is all without telling, we'd not told anyone we were doing it. It was just the band that knew. And we got a couple of girls in, Chrissy Cuttle and a girl called Maria Blakely, who I'd heard singing karaoke in a local pub, and her son was at school with my son, so I kind of saw her and I thought, I'll keep that one in the bank for the future. That girl can sing. Yeah. So we got them involved, and we were having vocal rehearsals with the girls and the band, but we didn't actually rehearse with the brass until the first gig, which was I believe a Saturday night gig for a friend of ours, 40th, which was a surprise for him. And I spoke to the fella's wife who had put this surprise do on and booked us, and I said, how would you feel about us playing half of the gig as a new band? And she said, well, what do you mean as a new band? I said, well, you just have to trust me on this. So she said, yeah, go for it. So she gave us the green light. Now, we never told anyone, only the band, Paul, obviously the sound man, knew, and Karen, whose husband Phil was his 40th. So it was 2009, and we played the gig, the first half, just as we'd always played.
But I'm looking around the audience, and you've got a sort of 5-post band, and there's all these other microphones and monitors set up on stage, and you can see them. Well, what's all that about?
Yeah.
You can see them trying to work something out, and no one knows. Yeah. Absolutely no one knows. Did they come walking out from?
No. So what happened? The Welcome Club's got like not a green room, but it's unlike a lot of places, it's actually got somewhere where you can actually get changed.
A cupboard at the side of the stage.
Yeah, no, it's got the cupboards, but there's an upstairs ballroom that they allowed us to use. So what happened was we did the first half. Everyone, yeah, thanks very much, and off we go. We all go upstairs, and we all get changed. I mean, everyone had suits on. All the guys had suits on, and the girls had a uniform on. They both had the same dresses on as each other. And when we came out for the second half, I can't remember what we opened with, but the whole of the second set was Northern Soul.
Yeah, I think they started, if my memory serves me correct, because what the hell's going on? I've got all this stuff happening now.
I don't think we started wading the water. That was Mersey. Mersey? Yeah, 100% Mersey. But we did the second half, all Northern Soul, and we blew the roof off. Yeah. And I remember, I think the Thursday before the gig, where we'd had the rehearsal, I think that was at the Mushroom Studios at Holbridge. Yeah. We had the rehearsal, and I was still buzzing on the Saturday from Thursday's rehearsal because, you know, there's that old saying, you know, if I hadn't seen such riches, I could live with being poor. Being in a band with a full sound like that for the first time, I'd never done it before. Yeah. You know, I'd been in a band which had a good sound. Yeah. You know, don't get me wrong, we sounded good. We had a full sound, but to add backing singers and brass, absolutely blew my head off. And we did that second half of that gig, Now we had a gig booked the following week for the Stamford Parkers, who are no longer a scooter club, but the Stamford Parkers Scooter Club at the Billet, in the hall at the Billet, where the Bad Manners later played. We had that booked, and the number one from the club was watching. He was at this party, and he come up to me afterwards, and he said, "Steve," he said, "what have we got next week? Have we got the band from the first half or from the second half?" He said, "Because I don't want the band from the first half. I want the band from the second half." To which I said, obviously, well, if you want the second half band, you need to pay some more money, because we've gone from a 5-piece band to a 10-piece band.
Alex
so
he's quite well off. He's a bit older than us now. Anybody was older than us then, but he's got a fair few quid. So I don't care whatever it costs. That attitude, I want.
So that was literally that gig for Phil Loveridge's 40th was the last Mod Life Crisis gig, if you like, and the first Signatures gig.
So
even though we weren't called the Signatures,
right? That was the question.
We weren't yet called the Signatures. Now that was in July, and I think we were already at that stage. We were already booked to play Mersey in September. So we probably had 2 or 3 gigs leading up to Mersey, but Mersey had already put the bands out there who were playing, and we were already billed as Mod Life Crisis, so we couldn't change the name. I wanted to, but it was too late because they'd already done the advertising.
I remember that because I kept finding flyers everywhere. Do you want to hear some Northern Soul?
Yeah, we so when we played Mersey, we absolutely blitzed the campsite with flyers for Live Northern Soul, Mod Life Crisis, Live Northern Soul, and we played. Although we were Mod Life Crisis, we were the Signatures. Yeah. It was only the fact that we had picked that name. But
to the name, so I've got a question here that I wanted to clear up, because over the years I spoke to various people about the name. So Kenneth Betts claimed that he made the name.
Kenny Betts didn't make the name.
Jay Hall claimed that he brought the name in. Yeah. And then I was in Spain. Okay, I was in Spain at a scooter rally with Tommy Hunt. Okay, I've driven him over there.
Tommy never did it either.
No, Tommy didn't do it. He didn't claim to do it either. No. But it was a really funny story, because I was at this scooter rally, and I've got Tommy, and I've rushed him out of the venue after he's performed and what else, packed it was. And we got outside the front, and people started stopping Tommy for photos and what else. So we started doing photos. So I'm standing at the edge, and suddenly someone come up, I don't know who it was, come up to me and he said to me, he said, "Oh, are you the guy from the Signatures?" "I'm in Spain." I was well chuffed. "Yeah, I am." And he went, "Oh yeah, Signatures." He said, "I'll come up with a name for that." I went, "Did you?" But I don't know who it was. So I've never known to this day who it was that I spoke to in Spain. But there's 3 people I know that claim that they came up with the name of the Signatures. Who was it?
100% it was Jay Hall. So Jay Hall's dad Rob was on the scooter scene, and Jay was to a certain Jay was in a scooter club called the Young Soul Rebels at the time, and I think it was around the time when Danny Peach had just started the KTF Soul Club. So the KTF Soul Club was in its real
Infancy.
sort of embryonic state. It was like really early days.
20 people in the back of a pub.
So I mean, the KTF thing that Danny started. I mean, I was one of the first DJs. I'm not a DJ, but he asked me to DJ the opening night, and I think I DJ'd twice in the first year. But the opening night, I definitely DJ'd on the opening night. But the Young Soul Rebels were, the kids that were sort of 18, 17, 18, 19 of our friends.
Island and that now.
So, and there was quite a group of them. There was probably about 10 or 15 of them that were all hanging around together. And Jay and Mitch, Brown. Heapy,
yeah.
I'm not even sure that was it. But Mitch, they at Canberra and Hemsby would go in the dance-off competitions and they'd win them. They were absolutely fantastic drivers. Jay,
videos of Jay.
I mean, Mitch was fantastic. Jay was a brilliant dancer, but Jay, there were all sorts of names that come back, and none of them were really memorable until Jay said the Signatures. And I remember thinking, that's a great name. And the first thing I did was Googled it and checked it out. Well, it sounded to me like there should have already been a band called the Signatures, because we were doing the signature Northern Soul tracks from the
That's exactly
the
that.
classics.
I asked him why the Signatures, and he said, were you playing the signature tracks? Because it was all the bangers.
Yeah.
What they were doing was all the bangers.
Yeah.
To start with.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was 100% Jay Hall. So let
That's-
no one,
that's cleared that
Kenny,
bit
if
of
you're
history.
listening, Kenny,
Wasn't
you're
you, Kenny?
dreaming, mate. You weren't.
I think Kenny
It might
actually
have
said
been
he
one
was
of the
involved in it.
suggestions.
You know, he was there at the time. To be fair to him, he was a lovely bloke. But yeah, no, I know. I had a conversation with Joe once, and he was telling me that.
Yeah,
he
no, it was
he
100%. It was
There's a lot of this I've had to link as I go along and meet people and whatever
Yeah.
else, and then found out a lot of the history afterwards. Because obviously I wasn't in the scooter scene, and I mean, I was in it a little bit, but not to the degree that all you guys were and whatever else. So.
Yes. So there we go. So we played Hemsby as Mod Life Crisis, although we were we played Mersey as Mod Life Crisis, although we were the signatures. You know, we were the name was in waiting, and then that was going forward. We was then the signatures. We had to leave it until Mersey to change the name because of the.
So it's turned into the signatures. So then, 10 years ago, I know when I joined, there wasn't many Northern Soul bands out there. So how many were there when how many bands were actually playing Northern Soul? Because I still think the signatures were one of the first.
There was. I remember there was one in Scotland called Berry Tweed and the Chasers.
Still going. We know them really well.
Yeah. So they did their version of what was it they did? 7 Days Is Too Long, and I kind of like the take on it that they did, which was the way that we did it was very similar to the way they did it. So it was kind of a mix of the Dexys version and the original version. So it was kind of a halfway house, but their influence was quite big. But there was a band, the name escapes me now, from the West Country that were kind of
The All Nighters.
The All Nighters. That's it. The All
Yeah, they're
Nighters.
split up now.
Yeah,
a few years ago.
they were good, but there weren't none to speak of.
I know when I joined, because me joining was a bit of a weird occurrence and what else, but I know then I looked and there didn't seem to be hardly any. You know, it just seemed to be the signatures that were the main one.
Yeah.
There's hundreds now.
Yeah.
In 10 years, especially this year,
Yeah.
they're popping up all over the place, you know, absolutely popping up all the place. But so, just going back to something you said just a little while ago, okay, when you were talking about the first gig, the first half or second half of the gig was going to be done as the new format. But you said there, you said the word that you had a vision. All right. So what was the vision for the signatures then?
The vision, I guess, in my wildest dreams, it would be where you have taken it to. I knew I was never going to be that man. I would never. I wasn't in the same league to get it to where it needed to go. But the vision that I had was for the band to be the band that the stars would want to play with. That they would want the signatures to be their backing band while they toured the UK. And you've done that.
Yeah, interesting.
You know,
I never knew that was the original.
Yeah, but that would have been where I would have wanted it to have gone to. You know, the vision being we would be a band that would be in demand, doing what we loved, doing Northern Soul. You know.
Well, so it's now the signatures. So I'm just going to go back a little bit. You started to play the Scooter Rallies 10-piece. Everything's going off.
Yeah.
So why did you leave?
Well, looks like you want to fill this one.
I'm going to open a can of worms.
No.
We try and keep it a little bit.
I think I've said everyone knows everyone, and we're all sort of interrelated and we know with Bill's cousins and whatever. And as good as she was, one of the girls was a little bit me.
We was at the time, Gav. We was a band. We was the same band. The brass section changed from gig to gig. Most the three of them. There were the three regular guys: Simon Tong, obviously Dave Welton.
Who's the other?
But the other guy, who was the guy that played in Fast Eddie? He was with us for a while. The sax player from Fast Eddie. His name eludes me now. Quite a while ago, wasn't it?
There were so many of them.
Yeah, but on the whole, the band were the same 10 musicians.
Yeah.
Give or take a couple of brass players from gig to gig. But and as I said earlier, all need to get along, and I just felt that one of the backing singers wasn't pulling her weight. Basically, she was in it for the money. She wasn't. She was a lot younger than the rest of us, and she was just in it for the money. And it was almost like she'd turn up late for rehearsals. She'd go early at rehearsals, and she'd be late. She'd be the last one turning up for a gig, and the first one to go, and she'd have her hand out for the money. And I don't want to badmouth her because she's a lovely girl.
Yeah, she's a fantastic voice.
But at the end of the day, I felt she wasn't on the same page as the rest of us.
Yeah.
So I said to Bill that she needs to go, and Bill kind of knew. He said, "Yeah, I agree." And I said, "I'll leave that to you to do." And he went, "Yeah, I'll do it. It's a dirty job, but I'll do it." And he didn't. And a week later, I said, "Have you done the deed?" He said, "No, I haven't done it." And he said, "Do you know what? I'm not going to do it." He said, "I've had a think about it." And obviously, it was his wife's sister's daughter. He said, "If I sack her, I'm going to get grief. My wife's going to get grief off of her sister, and I'm going to get grief off my wife. And I just don't want it."
Happy wife, happy life. Yeah.
So, fair enough. And I said, well, I couldn't believe what I heard when I said it, but I said, well, if she ain't going to go, then I'm going to go, because I put a lot of effort in to running this band.
Yeah.
And
Didn't Maria say the same thing at the same time?
well, no, I mean, I said, if she doesn't go, I'm going to go. And he said, well, all right, we'll find another drummer. And for me, that was a stab in the back, because I wasn't just a drummer.
Yeah.
I was
Right,
running the
false.
band. I was taking the bookings. It was my vision. It was, I sort of put this thing together. The amount of work I'd done behind the scenes was incredible. You know what I'm talking about. It's an unbelievable. And at this stage, compared to what you're doing, I'm not doing theatre shows, and although some of the gigs we did put on were pretty big towards the end.
Yeah.
But I just felt, for him to say, "Oh, we'll find another drummer," because I wasn't just the bloody drummer.
Yeah.
I was running the thing. So I said, well, if that's the way you see it, then good luck. Find yourself another drummer.
If you were running it, why didn't you put your foot down and you do the sacking?
Well, because he didn't want he didn't want her to go. He knew she wasn't pulling away, but he didn't want her. He would have copped it from his missus either way, whether I did it or
But
he
if
did
she
it.
went, would
I
Glenn
did
go?
it.
Yeah. But you've done it to nearly everyone since I've been gone.
The Axeman.
Yeah.
No,
Gavin the Axeman.
Chrissy, the singer, and Glenn were cousins.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got Glenn the keyboard
Yeah.
player. So
It
if
was
you
the
lost,
same. It was the same.
you could-
Don't ring the
yeah,
bell when
lose
I
one,
did. It's the same
it's
situation.
very, very. Everyone's interlinked and
Yeah.
knows everyone and related, family, blah blah blah, and it could have really upset the apple cart. So
Yeah.
what do? It's probably
But
best.
the
really,
thing is,
family
Gavin,
to do it.
as well, it's bloody tiring doing all that. I wasn't only running the band and being in the band, but I was helping with the PA and setting up the gigs, and even down to sweeping the dressing rooms out. Before a gig, I was doing everything, and part of me said, "You just stop. You don't need to be doing this anymore."
Do you ever regret? No,
Absolutely not. No. And people say that to me, Gav. They say, how do you feel now?
Yeah.
How do you feel when you see all these big stars
But
playing?
would it have?
I love
happened?
it. I absolutely love it. I
Would it have happened the way it has happened with Gavin taking the reins?
well,
Probably
if
not.
Gavin had that's what I'm
No.
saying. I don't think I was.
Even
I
as-
wasn't the man to take it to the next level.
Even with the second drummer,
I
it
knew-
wouldn't have progressed to where it is now. It wouldn't.
But I mean, obviously, when I joined, there was Bill, Tony, Glenn, Kev was on guitar.
So John Yallop.
No, wasn't in the
He'd
band.
gone by then.
He'd gone then.
He'd
yeah.
gone. So John, I mean the original guitarist Anthony Russell, he threw the towel in after the first gig that we done as the signatures at that party at Big Phil's party. He come up afterwards and said, "This ain't me. I want to play Oasis and Blur and the Jam and the Who.
Yeah.
I don't want to be twiddling on Northern Soul songs." And he was quite upset about it. And his wife was even more upset. His wife Sue was quite
Distraught.
she was angry about it, that we'd taken what she saw as a really great 5-piece band that was really doing well, and steered it in a path that Anthony didn't want to go down, although he'd agreed to it.
Yeah.
And certainly Sue didn't want to go. His wife didn't want us to go down that route. So he luckily enough, he stuck with it for the gig that we had booked the following week, and he didn't walk out on us because he nearly did. He did the gig and we got through it, and then we had to advertise for another guitarist, and we got a guy in that had been in a function band, and Richard, his name was, and he did the remainder of the gigs up until I left. So from sort of 2009 to 2010, he was the guitarist. But when I made that decision that I was going to leave, I knew the gig that we had. It was quite a big gig at Tilbury Community Centre, which is it's a sort of 500 seat venue. It's a big stage. I knew that was going to be my swan song. It was my last ever gig. So
on home turf.
Yeah, and it was on home turf because obviously I was brought up in Tilbury. So there's a lot of people there. It was a great gig. We recorded it. I've got the video of it somewhere. I've got the DVD of it all. Really played well. Bill played a really. Bill's got his critics, but that night he absolutely blew the roof off.
Yeah.
He put a shift in. Yeah, he was.
Oh yeah,
he
could have it when he was having it.
He was good.
Sure.
And and that for me that was my end of the journey for the Signatures. And Bill went on at the same time. Marie left, the other backing singer, when I left, because she obviously knew there were problems with the other girl, and the guitarist left as well. So
Kev must have been a replacement guitarist.
Yeah, Kev. I don't know after I left because
Kev hadn't been that long when I joined actually, and when I joined it kind of must have gone backwards, as we said this a bit earlier before we started recording. Because
was it just an advert?
The last gig we did, Gav, was all Northern Soul.
Yeah, see, when I joined, it was
two 50-minute sets of Northern Soul.
It was half Northern Soul, and then we were back playing like.
So he'd obviously.
And I joined thinking I'd join a Northern Soul band. That's what I wanted to join.
It was when I left.
That's what I found, and then all of a sudden we were doing like half sort of sort of mod numbers as such.
Yeah.
So I sort of started questioning, like, if we're a Northern Soul band, why are we playing the specials?
How did you get the gig?
That was quite funny. I was playing function work and what else, and then enough of that. I wanted to get back to. I've just left my job and was having a change of life, and I wanted to get back playing. But I really wanted to get back playing something that I wanted to play, not playing functions where I could earn good money. So I started looking around, and I was like, I really fancy playing some soul music, but not Mustang Sally and the wedding stuff. I fancied getting deeper into sort of really rare soul and maybe some Northern Soul and what else. But I didn't know if there was a Northern Soul band out there. So I'd actually sat there and thought, I wonder if there's any Northern Soul bands out there. Done a Google, saw the Signatures. Right?
Which was a website that I designed, paid for.
So I saw it and I thought, they look good. Googled around, didn't see anything else, which is why I knew there wasn't many. So I thought, that'd be interesting. Anyway, I went on it's quite a funny story actually when I think about it now. I went onto a website that was called Star Now. Same thing, where you look for band members. Yeah. So I was putting an ad up there and I'm looking through and I see this advert, Northern Soul Band looking for a drummer. I thought, I don't know, that's a bit of a result considering that's what I was thinking about putting together. So I looked in it and I thought, this is that band that I saw the other day. All right. Mm-hmm. Now, knowing where I've put adverts on Star Now before, you get inundated with loads and loads and loads of replies. You end up with like 200 replies and only 5 of them are any good. So I clicked in that it was this band that I'd seen. So me being me, instead of going through the Star Now, I got the phone number off the website. Finally, after about a week and a half, got through to someone. Someone actually called me back, and I gave some cock and ball story about someone had told me that they were looking for a drummer and suggested I gave them a call. And I spoke to Bill, and then Bill was like, and I think I made a cock and ball story about, blah blah down the Checkers or what else, you must know him. Said you're looking, and Bill was like, because we've got about 200 applicants we've got to go through. He said, and I can't be asked to go through it all, so he just carried on talking to me, and managed to arrange an audition, done the audition, and then they invited me to join. But they had Dan on drums. Now, apparently,
where was I rehearsing then? Where did you go?
The first rehearsal I'd done when we was here in my studio.
So
because I'd just literally taken the studio on.
Yeah.
So I said, I've got my own studio if you want to come down and rehearse here. So they came and rehearsed here. But it was a weird situation because Dan was the drummer, but then I was being told that Dan's got a bad knee and he can't do it anymore and he's going to be leaving. So
what year was that, Gav? How long after I left then?
Was that 10 or 11?
this must have been about. Well, I've been at 10 years now, so
2013.
years,
So there was a
12,
a 2 or 3
year.
year gap between me going when the band was full Northern Soul
Right, got you.
and when you joined 3
Yeah.
years later.
It
It had
regressed a
gone
little
back
bit.
to
Regressed.
Well, yeah, because
half and half.
when I joined, they said, "Oh, top Northern Soul band in the country." Blah, blah. But we didn't really have any gigs. You know,
Yeah.
when I joined, all of a sudden it was like, well, "What gigs then?" And it was like a couple of scooter rallies, but that was it. There was nothing really booked.
Yeah.
And it turned out Dan was meant to be leaving, so thought I was joining. And then all of a sudden, Bill phones me up and says, "Oh, the drummer don't want to leave now." Right. Well, I actually fancy doing some percussion because he can't do all the gigs, so maybe you could share the role with him. So I was a bit, well, it's not really what I wanted, but okay. So I did my first gig, which was down on the Isle of Sheppey.
Yeah, I went to that. That was Sid James.
That's it, Sid Jones Scooter Rally.
yeah.
That was my first gig, and I played percussion.
That was
Right.
Ron Bailey, I think. Yeah.
So after then,
No, it wasn't Ron.
Dan was going to do half the gigs. I was going to play some percussion, but then I was going to play drums on some of the gigs. And it was a bit of a mess. But then I worked out that all the decent gigs, where it was 10-piece and Scooter Rally, Dan had committed to all those, but all the pub gigs,
Yeah.
all of a sudden I was doing. I thought, I'm not having this. So I kicked off with Bill a little bit about it, and then an argument started with Dan where Bill basically hadn't sorted it out properly and miscommunicated everything and what else, like he used to. So Dan ended up leaving. So that was it. I was then sort of playing the drums.
Still
and
talk
whatnot.
to him.
No, I haven't seen Dan since. I didn't really get to meet him that much anyway because there was so much frost in the air as such between Bill, Dan and everyone else when I joined. It was like a real cutthroat, and I got talking to Kev, who I still know now, and we're still good friends, and he was like, "Oh, I joined this band thinking we're the top Northern Soul band. It's been nothing but arguments and this, that and everything else." So it was in a real disjointed bit of a mess, to be honest with you. But I think I must have done about a year in that format with Tony and Bill and whatever else, and then me and Bill had a big argument basically, and then Bill left.
Did Bill leave before Tony?
Yeah,
Bill
Yeah.
left before Tony.
yeah. So we had a big argument. It was at a gig in Ilford. Bill turned up horrendously late, and no one could get hold of him. He wasn't answering his phone, and we were all sitting there, literally waiting to go on.
That was standard.
It was like
That was how it was.
we were all
Five-
just sitting
five
there,
to curtain.
not knowing what's going
yeah.
on. Don't know if Bill's turning up to the gig, and it was a Scar and Mash do for
Fake Lifestyle.
yeah. So it's a charity do we're doing. So we're all sitting there, literally, we're due on stage 5 minutes, there's no Bill, no one's heard from him, no one could get hold of him on his mobile, no nothing. All of a sudden he turned up, came out, and we were all like, we've got to get on.
I'm
got to
here
get
and
on. And Bill comes out and I need to change my guitar strings because they're a bit rotten. And we're all like, "You're joking, and we need to get on the stage." "Oh, I've got to change my..." So it caused a big row that night. And it probably wasn't a good time because I always remember the night because unfortunately my mother-in-law passed away that night as well. Me and Sharon had to dash from the end of the gig. We literally, Sharon's on stage, and because Sharon started doing some backing vocals then because Chrissy had gone and whatever else. So Sharon started doing some backing vocals, and that's called her off the stage. So I knew what was coming. So it wasn't a good night, but I just sent Bill a message the next day of just saying, this ain't on. You can't treat people in a band like this. And then Bill sent me a message, a bit of an argument, but then Bill left. Now I think he was expecting me to then back down and leave, but I didn't. And then it was a question of like, what are we going to do now then?
Who's
And
going to steer the ship?
yeah, I think it was a bit of a weird one, and it's a question I asked because a lot of people. We started doing the March and Mods gigs for Ian because we got Lee Bonington came on then. I thought, just going to look for another singer then. I wasn't too worried about it, and we found Lee. But I think a lot of people wondered. I remember talking to Andy, obviously drummer of Purple Hearts now, but I remember being at a gig talking to him, and he was like, "Well, you sacked the singer." I said, "No, I didn't sack the singer. I did not sack the singer." I said, "I just told him a little bit of own truth of how you should be treating people." I said, and he left. I said, so I never actually sacked Bill, and I still claim that I never sacked. Actually, I haven't sacked a lot of people. Maybe I'll just put it right, and they've made a decision to leave. But so that's when he left. So I guess that's when I ended up. It was never my intention to end up. I just wanted to get out, play drums, play some Northern Soul, and enjoy myself.
So can you remember your first gig?
My first gig playing the drums was
Not the pub gigs, the bigger gigs.
do you know what? No, I can't. I did the Sid Jones, but I was on percussion. My first gig behind the
We
drum.
were there.
Yeah,
We were there at the Sid James.
Yeah.
And because that's the first year that the Big Seven Scooter Club they've just done one in the back garden of a pub.
Yeah.
And you've got Sue and Mark Natman walking around giving out the flyers for the rally. And I start talking, well, who's doing your PA?
Yeah.
And then it went from there with us
Right, got you.
doing
So
the PA.
after I left the Signatures, Paul had between us, we'd bought all the equipment.
Well, several garages worth of gear.
We had a load of equipment. What we're going to do with this now? I'm not in a band anymore. So we started touting ourselves as gig rigs.
Yeah.
And being a PA for hire kind of thing. So bands, we had a lot of work with the Welcome Club with when they booked their function bands. A lot of the function bands, especially the bigger ones, would expect you to, the venue to provide the PA and the sound man. So that's the route we went down. That we went in and put the sound in for the bigger bands.
A question I want to ask is, at that period then when Bill's left, obviously the history of the band, you set it all up, whatever else, this drummer's appeared from nowhere. All of a sudden Bill's left and this drummer, unknown from anyone, has suddenly taken over the Signatures. What was your thoughts then?
We'd heard of you. What was your function band you was in?
I played in loads of different function bands, yeah.
Because I think, not the Haters,
No.
similar sort of thing, isn't it? To what
Yeah,
Steve
I've
Henderson does,
played
another drummer.
Yeah.
I had heard of you
Yeah.
and the band you was in, so I knew.
Was Jay Cresswell involved somewhere along the line?
Jay came in later on.
Came in later on.
When Tony left.
Yeah.
That's how Tony ended up leaving.
we probably did
lead guitar player.
We probably did the sound for you at the Big Seven at the Hop Farm at Paddock Wood, because we did the sound I did the sound with you for a couple of 3 years, and then
that was 4 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But what I wanted is at the time when Bill left, because I think I didn't realise at the time, but I realise now that when Bill left, everyone was a bit like, but he was the Signatures, So I wondered what your thoughts were then when Bill's left.
I thought I was the Signatures.
Well, yeah, you left.
Yeah. So did Bill. But
It's probably the same with Jack Kendall and P45.
Yeah.
You think Jack, and you think P45, even though he's not there now, he's going to do a few more gigs and see how it goes again.
I think he's going back.
He's going to go back from a few gigs. But people turn up to see P45 and, well, where's the big guy? And it's probably the same with you and Bill. It's like, well, where's the big guy? I know Lee's a lovely bloke, and he carried on doing what he done and belting it out as Lee does.
Yeah.
Until he moved on, and then where did Stefan come in?
Well, Lee, it's funny how things turn out. So Lee basically dropped us in it a little bit. All of a sudden, he had a lot of commitments. He kind of said to me that he thought he was going to start struggling, so we kind of thought we need to start finding someone. And it's funny when you go back to what you said about your original vision, because I didn't know about that then. And I kind of looked at it then, because I really liked Lee. I got on quite well with Lee. And Lee was saying, I can't commit to the family. I don't, because I wanted to do a lot of gigs. So kind of Lee sort of said, I don't think I can commit to this. So I said to him, well, look, why don't we do it a different way? Why don't we start being a band, but start using different vocalists? Having just been a backing band, but we have the option to work with different vocalists. Because I was looking at it, I really wanted to start gigging, and I didn't know if many people would be able to keep up with the commitment. So Lee, unfortunately, then let us down. We had a gig booked in Ipswich, self-promoting one, so I'd done all the work and sold all the tickets and all the work that comes with it. And it was literally like a week and a half before the gig, Lee said, I can't do it. I just cannot do it. I thought, well, I can't cancel it. So we had a girl that was working here in the studio at the time, and she said, she was very much in the function band, so she was used to just depping with absolutely everybody. She said, I'll find you a singer. The thing is, it's not just standard covers, it's still Northern Soul. Not many people know Northern Soul. She goes, well, I know one guy, so and it was Steph. So she put Steph in touch with me, and I spoke to Steph. I said, look, it's Northern Soul. He went, I know quite a bit about Northern Soul. Really? He said, yeah. He said, my dad was a DJ in Leicestershire. He said, I've been brought up on Northern Soul, and his dad's still a DJ in Leicestershire. So Steph actually, he said, I've never sung it, but I kind of know the numbers. So so he agreed to do it. So we sent him the set list. I think we had one rehearsal here the night before the gig, and he went to the gig, and he had his iPad in front of him.
Wow.
Yeah, and was like basically reading the words. But as soon as he started singing, it was like, this kid's got an amazing voice.
Yeah,
You know, got a really amazing voice. So that's how Steph joined. He kind of
Did
just
you have
then
something to do with
hooked up
Lee?
on.
You met him at a football game.
Yeah, he was singing
Should
for the
have you heard of
mannequins.
us? Should I have done?
He was with the mannequins, and his boy's the same age as my boy, and he brought him over for a trial when I was running my boys' football team. So that was just coincidental, you know.
Yeah, Lee was
But
great.
I knew
really
Lee
enjoyed
from the
Lee.
we looked at each other and went, you know, we sort of knew each other
Yeah.
through the music, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's just he couldn't commit at the time, and obviously over recent years we've seen more of Lee, you know, with his mental health podcast and what else he's doing and what else, and there was obviously more to it at the time as well, and what I understood. But that's how Stefan joined. We were literally dropped in it. But I was trying to say to Lee at the time, just don't drop it on the head. You know, tell me what gigs you can do, and then I'll find out what gigs Steph can do, and we can start to change the format where we become more of a backing. Because I then started thinking, well, you know, there must be other singers that we can start working with and turn it more to a backing band with featured singers is kind of when I started getting the idea from it, which weren't a bad idea and it's worked out pretty well over the years. But I always wonder what people that, you know, the original people that were in the band, what they thought when Bill went, you know, it must...
I think that there was a period when every gig was different people, whether it be the different singers or different guitarists, different keyboard players, and the nickname Triggers Broom was getting branded about. You know, they didn't say we're going to see the Signatures, we're going to see Triggers Broom are playing at the Isle of Wight Scooter Rally, and it was like Triggers Broom because, you know, 11 new handles and 12 new heads, but different people every time you saw the band. But, you know, and I guess to a certain extent that still goes on now because you're all competent musicians, and if someone can't make it, the show must go on.
It's only really the horn section.
Which it was when I was in it because of the same
standard
reason.
you're at now, you was before just, you know, whacking them out, but now you've actually got musicians that, I can
like that.
And they play.
I was part of a band that just whacked it out.
Yeah, and just play. You know, they can read it. You know, they can feel what's coming up, and you can see that whoever comes in is straight on the money.
Well, I think that's the difference. I think that's the changing point. Is because I wasn't from the scooter scene. I mean, you know, very brief encounters and what else with it. But you know, it wasn't like you guys that are part of the scooter scene. Obviously, that's where the band had grown. But I always, and I still say now, when people say I'm part of the Northern Soul scene, I say no, I'm part of the live music scene. You know, so I'd always been the live music scene. So when I started having to recruit members, I wasn't recruiting people from the scooter scene. I was bringing people in that I'd known from the live music scene. You know, and I wasn't too worried. I say I wasn't worried about they didn't know Northern Soul. Funnily enough, everyone that I pulled in did know a bit about Northern Soul. I mean, even Ben. I mean, Ben looks like a rock guitarist, but he grew up on Northern Soul. His sister, like, she's used to be a member of the Supper Scooter Club. You know, she like he said, I know Northern Soul. He said, I grew up on him. His sister used to always be playing it. So, although he's a rock orientated and influenced sort of guy and what else, he knew Northern Soul. Steph knew Northern Soul, you know. So everyone that I kind of brought in still did know about Northern Soul, but they weren't from the scooter scene, from the mod scene, but I wasn't really worried about that. I was more interested in their abilities as musicians to start coming into the band, you know.
See, I felt like when I was in the band, we were a band, and I wanted everyone to believe in it as much as I did. And you know, that was obviously with Chrissy why I left in the end, because I didn't think she believed in it the same way I did.
We're still like that now. But the core, when you say the core members, Stefan, Sharon, me, Mooty. I mean, Mooty's been with us. When did Jay leave? 4 years ago. It's the whole core are all still very much together, and on that, you know, we are the band sort of thing. It's only really the horn players and the percussionists that sometimes change. Our percussionist that we've been working with for the last year or so, Cleo, she's had a horrendously busy year. It's just been too much for her, you know, because the gigs are so much. It's hard to get people that can commit for all the gigs, you know, which is why we end up using some different horn players and percussionists. But it's pretty much the core members most of the time. Just so what we were saying there. So last year, you come up to see us at Basildon. You mentioned earlier.
The town gate.
To the Basildon, which is our theatre show format. What's it feel like sitting in the audience?
I feel
watching
like
the band.
I feel like a proud father. I do, Gav. I do. You know, people say to me,
"Thanks, Dad."
People say to me, you know, it must be awful. You know, they're successful, but it was what I wanted. I wanted the band to be successful, and I do feel like, you know, I remember talking to Georgia. I think it was when she signed for Static Wax at the
Essex Arms.
yeah, at the gig that she did for that.
Essex
And
Arms,
I
yeah.
remember speaking to her, and I was like, because I knew that she knew Ian and she knew you. I was like, I was the original drummer in the Signatures, and she was like, pretty much like you.
Taken aback.
She wasn't taken aback. It was like, who are you? It's like, but I kind of felt, I feel proud of what you've made of it. I felt proud of what I'd done to it.
100%.
And I feel proud of what you've done to it, But I'm not bitter in any way. People say, why aren't you bitter?
I didn't think you'd be.
No, but people can be, can't they? Yeah. They can be. There are people that are bitter about.
I mean,
stuff
obviously,
like that.
I'm not a band member, so I never experienced that side of it.
I think the sound engineer still comes in as a band member
You're
personally.
working with better people than me now, believe me. But what I see of it, from my point of view, is where everyone sort of knew everyone, there was a lot more banter between them, and it was sort of raw.
Yeah.
Whereas now, it's so polished, it's so, I won't say perfect, because it's live. In a studio, it might well be, but that has changed. It's gone from bum note every now and again, and now it's absolutely spot on. But that's live music. That happens, but now it's so. It's another level.
Yeah,
it really is.
It needs to be to get to where it needed to get to.
Well, now you're working with, or worked with just about everyone who's anyone in the scene. So you've got to be to that level for them to want to work with you anyway. Yeah. So how do you feel about being what was the first approach to work with a mainline artist such as?
The mainline artist really came through Russ Winstanley. Okay, so we, I'd got to know Russ. He'd been to see the band, and he was doing the Northern Soul Weekenders and Butlins. Diana Shaw band was doing them before, and they're first class. I mean, they really were first class. And all of a sudden, they decided they weren't going to do it, and then Russ asked us to do it. I've never known to this day whether he actually genuinely felt our passion for it, which is what he says, and gave us the opportunity, or whether he was just in the shit and needed a band. But we gave us the opportunity anyway. And if I'm honest with you, we weren't ready for that first one that we did. We were nowhere near ready for it. I'm not personally. I'm just not one that looks back that much. I have recently. I've looked back to look at what we've achieved. I think that was from obviously what happened a few weeks ago on BBC Two, on BBC Six. I've actually sort of sat back and kind of looked at it and thought, like we've done quite a lot, and we've been on quite a journey.
Something you said on that with that Craig Charles show when he said, you're accepted, and I remember when we first started doing it, you get some nasty comments on YouTube and stuff, and I know what you meant by when you said the purists didn't accept us.
They've only just started,
and they are now. So hats off to you. Because
is that
to win them
because-
over, to win them guys over,
is that because you're working with the original artist now, and they're asking to work with you, that they've accepted you?
I think so. I think it's a couple of things. I think it's because we've been persistent. I think obviously we're a much better band than what we were now. I mean, just go back to what I was saying. When we did the first Butlins one, there's no way we were near ready. I mean, we were nowhere near ready. I mean, we had Jay on bass there and what else, and it still felt very disjointed. Now, when we work with an artist, we're absolutely on it. Obviously, when Jay left and Mooty came in, that made a big difference. Mooty's bass playing was just like, absolutely perfect for the band. So that really did make a big difference, personality-wise as well. I mean, we said it earlier on, trying to get 10 personalities to all work together, to travel together, rehearse together, get on with each other. You've got to have a lot of sort of respect of each other, to respect how people are and how they act, and give them their space and give them this, that and the else. And that's been the hardest part. But because the core's so strong now, I think off stage, it makes a massive difference when we're on stage. And I think that really does come through and shine now. But I think the purist, it's a combination. One, that we've got better as musicians. Two, we've been consistent, and I think they realise that we're into the music. It's not just like a band being put together because Northern Soul's popular, especially this year. There's a lot more bands coming out at the moment because Northern Soul 50th anniversary and everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. I think a lot of people have realised that we weren't, we're not just jumping on the bandwagon. We've actually got a passion for the music and passion for what we're doing and the people we're meeting and what else along the way as well. So yeah, it's a combination of things, but it does seem that we have turned a big corner over the last, even only the last I'd say 8-9 months, I felt that corner kind of turn in terms of the purists, and a lot more people have got behind us.
Well, I noticed watching the thing at the Proms a couple of weeks ago that you know, the social media was full of people. Even there, the purists were slagging that off, saying it, you know, it's a load of old rubbish. And I thought it was great. I thought to sit and watch that, it was very entertaining. I loved it, you know. But again, there they are, the purists. You know, unless it's the original, and it's got to be on vinyl as well. It can't just be the original song. It's got to be on vinyl. You know, them guys, they're out there, aren't they? And
we still get it. There was one earlier.
I can imagine.
You do our social media, so you know. We still get it. We still get the comments and what else, but we don't get nowhere near as much now as what we used to. And I think some of that is one of at the weekend we did a show with Amy Hodgkins, who's a dancer up in Sheffield. She's based. So she's quite a modern. She's young. She's into Northern Soul.
The blonde one.
Sorry,
the blonde one.
She's got blue hair.
Blue. What was the blonde one that was on the BBC Two?
Yeah, that is the same one.
That is the same one. She's changed her hair.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
But she's great. But she's like the new modern Northern Soul. You know, I mean, she's on social media. So because she's on social media, she gets a lot of interaction and all this sort of thing. So it's not the purist. But her dad has been like really, you know, been a purist, and he's been into the scene for donkey's years. But she still goes to all the underground clubs and what else. So she's in that kind of line where she's on the underground purist side, but she's also, you know, from the purist side, a little bit more commercial and open herself up. So she still gets a lot of criticism as well. You know, I think the important thing is, and this is what we've tried to stick to, is trying to keep the values of the original Northern Soul scene, but understanding that we're in 2023 now, not 1973. You know, and there's this thing called social media, and the way we communicate and the way everything else is a completely different world now. You know. But yeah, we still get the abuse, but we don't get it as much. But we seem to have turned the corner with a lot of the purists. But you know, we are a much better band now than what we were before. So as you said, we're polished but not too polished. But you know, it just works. We've clicked as musicians and worked hard at it, and the sound's good. So yeah, that's why I think we've turned that corner. We still get some of it though. I think we forever will do, to be honest with you.
The trolls are out there.
So what did you think about, obviously you just mentioned the BBC Six. We had the pleasure a few weeks ago to go to Maid of Our Studios, BBC Six, on the Craig Charles Funk and Soul show, which when we talk about visions, I don't think that ever come into my vision that was ever going to happen. So I was obviously over the moon when it happened. It was a magnificent experience.
As you said, it's so big this year, and obviously it's 50 years since Wiggin. I can't believe it's that long anyway. You know, I won't say I was brought up on it. I was such a broad spectrum of music, but you did hear bits of it coming on. Skiing in the Snow.
A soul boy.
of descriptions. I mean, I remember Skiing in the Snow was one of the first ones that sort of put my mind to that sort of music. And Tommy Beattie dancing down a ditch in the middle of the ferry field singing that. I don't know why I remember that, but I've kind of lost track where I was going to go now.
How do you feel about the BBC Made of It?
Yeah, I mean, it's just incredible that a music genre that this guy started, you know, really pushing is now at the sort of front of fashion. And what's the sort of progression of the band that he started is now at the forefront of it. Yeah. And that is just, for me, as he said, I'm proud father. It's like
it is. That's how I feel. Like, you know, for me,
we started that.
For me to hear my band, you know, and Jay as well. You know, Jay come up with the name. He must go. You know, that's I named that band. He must feel the same way. But for me, to see you guys doing what you were doing, you know, we're absolutely brilliant, absolutely fantastic. Brilliant. Proud is all I can say, mate. Proud of what you've achieved.
Obviously, that pleases me. Where we go to next? I mean, where would you want to see the Signatures go to next? That's the problem.
Well, I don't know what more you can possibly do.
You can't even say go to Detroit into the Motown studios. I know there's a lot of stuff probably come out of there that's in a vault somewhere that wasn't released.
Mm-hmm. Loads.
That's
loads.
Just on that genre, for some reason it didn't make it. Christ knows why.
Yeah.
You know, what would be the main studio to come out with for Northern Soul? Would you want to work in that studio? Well, what would be the studio?
I don't know. Do you know? it's already gone past all my expectations. You know, I think the Craig Charles thing blew my mind a little bit.
You've got to pinch yourself.
Yeah. I mean, you know, literally, I came off stage at Retrofest, got in a car, drove into London straight away, and then like an hour later, I was sitting in front of Craig Charles doing an interview, and I actually sat and pinched myself and thought, this is off the scale. And then, you know, we went to Maid of Our Studios, which was, for any musician, you know, is an absolute experience, and it was a real good experience. So I think that, to me, it's made me question a lot recently. You know, it's like, what else can we do? My actual dream, I suppose I've still got one dream. My dream originally was to do the Royal Albert Hall with an orchestra. And of course, it'd just been done with the Proms. So when that came out, I was a bit gutted.
Yeah.
I loved the Proms. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was musically great. I thought it lacked a little bit of passion in some places, but that's just me being really critical.
So good.
But the only thing I thought let it down, for me, I really like and I love working with the original artists.
Do you know why that came across for me? Why that they missed an opportunity with some of the original artists that they could have brought them in.
Yeah, a lot of original artists, they do struggle on their vocals now. Obviously, they're getting older, but you know why you wouldn't have had Toby Legend there just to lead the last chorus of Time Would Pass You By. Eddie Holman, I Surrender, they did. Eddie Holman's still got such a voice. He still sings in the original bleeding key, Christ, and you know, he's in his 70s. He's an amazing artist and one I still want to work with again. So, whilst my dream I thought had been shattered in terms of the Royal Albert Hall with a full orchestra, I think I've kept it alive, thinking there's still the Royal Albert Hall with a full orchestra, but with original artists. So for me, that's keeping the dream alive. But I don't know what else we can do. It's gone past my expectations.
Did you do the Albert Hall and say,
that's it.
Thank you, good night?
I always said if I'd got Jules Holland's show, I'd call it a day after that. So, but what worries me now is we're getting bloody close to when we might actually do it. So now I don't want to actually say I'd pack it in. I just can't see me packing it in. I just still love it too much, and you know we're already 42 gigs booked for next year.
So when the next Northern Soul band comes along, they'll be getting you out as one of the originals.
Well, it's. There's so many more bands out there as well. So the competition, and I think that was the good thing about the Craig Charles actually, because there is a lot more bands coming out now. There is a lot more competition for us, and I kind of felt that when we got the Craig Charles thing, it did kind of just stamp it. It did just kind of say that we've managed to hold on to that place and secure it.
Have you thought about doing original stuff?
Well, fun enough, when we did a Q&A in Mallorca last year, and one of the biggest questions that came up from a lot of people was when we started going to do some originals. And I kind of asked the question then, and the sense of people when I answered, it's like, it's not what we're about. We're known for taking Northern Soul songs and doing it in our own signature style, you know, and doing covers. But as it happens, next Saturday, Sydney Barnes arrives in the UK Tuesday, and next Saturday we're booked in the studio for 5 days to start writing and recording with Sydney Barnes. So, yeah, there's some original stuff coming. I guess that's where we need to go next, really.
You did one of Lee's songs, an original song, Have You Seen My Love? And I thought that was a fantastic song as an original. So I think
I loved it.
You know,
I love that song. Lee said we could keep it. You know, it might be one that we bring it back. We did Break the Blues as well with Steph, which is an original song, which went down okay. In fact, that's just got a film sync. It's coming out in a film in a short while, actually, strangely enough. But I think for us, and I think we all feel that we need to start now hitting some original songs and start seeing what we can do.
That would be the next level, really, because you know, for people in the audience that aren't right up there with Northern Soul, they probably wouldn't know the difference between an obscure original and your own stuff. I
think it's original stuff, and then I think we've just been booked. We've been booked for the Benidorm Palace for next year. 2 nights at the Benidorm Palace, which felt like quite an achievement as well. So Europe, we're playing Mallorca. Europe seems to be opening up a little bit for us as well. So I guess that's
when's the Benidorm one?
End of September sometime next year it is. Yeah. So that was a huge privilege to you know find out your headline in the Benidorm Palace. It's a big venue, you know. It's a really well-known venue out there as well. So there's a lot still happening. So who knows? Who knows where it's going to go? Yeah. It's kind of met all my expectations. Yeah.
I'll just sit there and watch as a proud father.
Well, Dad, all I can say is, and maybe we should wrap up on this, is that all of us in the band really appreciate and really, really do appreciate everything you did starting it. Because if you hadn't started it, we wouldn't be where we are now. You know, and I think all the bands feel that. They all kind of look back, and I know they're going to enjoy listening to this podcast. That if it hadn't been for you guys, there wouldn't be what was happening now. Yeah. You know, and whilst we've worked hard at it, it wouldn't have happened. Yeah. You know, it's down to you.
But it's the same for me. I appreciate that you carried it on and you've taken it to the next level, and there's probably another little bit to go, and hopefully, you know, you'll get to where you need it to be, and you know, I can just say,
that's my boy.
Yeah.
Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I really thank you for coming down to the studio. I really enjoyed the chat and whatever else. And
thanks, Gav.
Yeah. Mate, we will continue. Thank you very much.
It's a wrap.
Good. It's a wrap, yeah. Thanks very much. Okay, thanks for listening. Make sure you check out all our latest news, gig dates and everything that's happening with The Signatures at www.thesignatures.co.uk. Please make sure you also follow this podcast. We're going to be doing regular stuff in the future. Whichever platform you listen to on it, click subscribe and keep up with the latest dates and all the information. Thanks very much.